Windows services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Comfort Now by Bob McAllister. Improve the comfort in your home. Call 609-400-1005 and ask about discounts and rebate incentives. Visit iwantcomfortnow.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media, South Jersey.
South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Well, something to think about, for sure.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back on June 1st here on 97.3 ESPN. And we have news about the one and only Joel Embiid. We will get to Joel and the Sixers, of course. We have Sixers basketball back tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, in front of a full capacity crowd tomorrow night. So if you have any doubts about the Sixers wrapping up this series, think again. Joel Embiid or no Joel Embiid, we'll find out which will be there. But I feel pretty confident the Sixers will win the game tomorrow night. But the news came down just a little bit ago. Joel Embiid is doubtful for the game tomorrow night. Paul Hudrick, our Sixers insider over at 97.3 ESPN.com, will join us coming up at 6:20 tonight to dive deeper into the Philadelphia 76ers. Also, we got to touch on what the relevance of today is in the NFL and the latest rumors with the Eagles and other players around the league. And of course, we are here for you. Text board is open, 609-403-0973 for all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. 609-403-0973 is text board. We also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can comment and join the conversation right here. That's at 973 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Before we get to the NFL stuff, let's first get to this Joel Embiid news. So I want to bring some clarity to a little bit of this conversation because I'm seeing people on social media trying to spin this a certain direction. We need to keep in mind the timing of the Joel Embiid news that came out. Probably, I'm not saying 100%, but probably has something to do with the fact that the Sixers did not leave Washington and did not get back to Philadelphia at the time it was expected. You may or may not have heard that the Sixers had delays flying back from D.C. So as a result, they did not get back to Philadelphia at the expected time, which meant that it is possible that Joel Embiid did not have his MRI at the time they previously expected. So while Davis Bertans had his MRI, the news came out, he didn't have to travel, he didn't have to go anywhere, he was already in D.C. So the news came out at one time based on when he was able to go. It's completely fair to assume that Joel Embiid maybe said, I got home late. Do I have to be there at 9 a.m. to get this MRI, or could I wait till, 10:30 a.m.? It's certainly possible. So let's not read too much into the timing of this. This is not a situation where the Sixers were hiding information from us. Brian Colangelo is no longer general manager, okay? This is Daryl Morey. This is Doc Rivers. This is Elton Brand. Stop holding against the current administration a previous administration's mistakes, okay? That's the first thing to keep in mind. Second of all, what does doubtful really mean? Well, based on our experience with the NFL, doubtful means it's unlikely the player will play. That doesn't mean that Joel Embiid can't play. It doesn't mean that he won't play. What it means is this. If you go back and watch the film of what happened. Joel Embiid, when he fell, his knee buckled, and then he fell, and the first thing he grabbed when he got up was his hip and his back. He didn't grab his knee. He wasn't trying to work it out. In the moment, his instinct was to check his back and his rear end and not his knee. That in and of itself should tell you that the reason why it's doubtful is because they're being precautionary. Do not forget that earlier this year, Joel Embiid also dealt with a knee issue. Joel Embiid suffered a bone bruise earlier this year. Okay? Remember, the MRI that he had earlier this year revealed a bone bruise and no structural damage on his left knee. So it's certainly possible that Joel Embiid's injury to his right knee may just be another bone bruise situation. And if you go and look at the picture of him on social media, he's not wearing a brace. He's not wearing any crazy wrap on his leg. He's wearing what is the equivalent of a compression knee sleeve. So this seems to be much more of a precautionary thing than anything else. So with those two things in mind, now that you have all the information, unlike some people who want to jump on social media and jump to conclusions and say crazy stuff because they want to have an agenda or whatever their perspective is. Maybe they just hate the Sixers. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is that, like Aaron Rodgers said, RELAX. Relax, Sixer fans. Because even if Joel Embiid doesn't play tomorrow night, they're going to win that game. And they're going to win that game because at the end of the day, Joel Embiid is the most important part of this Sixers team's success. But the second most important element is actually home court. You've heard me talk about this here on 97.3 ESPN. The 76ers have an 81% winning percentage in the regular season at home over the last few years. In the two postseasons before the bubble, they had a 63% winning percentage at home as well. And this year, they are 2-0 at home in front of a Philly crowd that was only about 11,000. You don't think that a jam-packed house of screaming, wild, emotional, supercharged fans are going to get that Sixers team up and running? How many times have we talked about here on 97.3 ESPN about the fact that role players always perform better in front of the home crowd? So Seth Curry had 0 threes in the last game. Do you really think he'll have 0 threes in the next game? Do you really believe that this Sixers team is so poor without Joel Embiid that when they went 10-11 without him this year, that was a coincidence? That was an accident? Let me be very clear. This team plays differently at home, and they will always play differently at home as long as Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Tobias Harris are on this roster. It's just who they are. This is a team that was 20-16 away from home this year. They're above average away from home. They're really great at home. So, for all the questions we're having about Joel Embiid, let's put some context on it. Let's have some clarity and let the situation play out. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. The text board is open at 609-403-0973. That's 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter to get in on the conversation. When you watch the show, just follow 973 ESPN to watch Sports Bash with Mike Gill, as well as GameNight with yours truly, Josh Hennig. Now, Eagles NFL. Today is a big day because today is the day that we are technically on to the next fiscal year for the NFL. So that is why a lot of these contract money is no longer a pure hit against this year, as long as the contract's written properly. I can't speak for every contract, but at least in the case of a lot of players, the money is now moving to next year, or at least part of it is. And as a result, the Eagles now have about $4.5 million extra money to go out and sign their rookies because Zach Ertz's money is not all going to hit their cap anymore. So it'll probably be easier for them to trade him. It'll probably be easier for them to add another cornerback in free agency. It will probably be easier for them to do a multitude of different things. I think when push comes to shove, this team, they're probably going to trade Zach Ertz. And I thought that today on the Sports Bash, Jeff Kerr brought up a great point. It's something I've heard Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan bring up before on Football at 4, but on a day like today with a lot of rumors, a lot of innuendo out there, I felt it was great to have someone to kind of bring a breath of clarity to the conversation with Zach Ertz.
I kept hearing the 3rd and 4th round pick. That's what the Eagles want. They not both, obviously. They'll go for a 3rd, they'll go for a 4th, but they're not just going to give this guy away, and they really don't want to cut him. Zach Ertz probably wishes he was cut, but the Eagles view him as a valuable commodity, and
they're not going to give him away. They view him as a valuable commodity. The reality is that Zach Ertz has value. If he had no value, they would have cut him already. But because he has value, now, how much that value is, that's debatable. But he has value. And as a result, they have not moved him yet because they don't have to move him yet. So don't overthink this with Zach Ertz. I would say the likelihood of Zach Ertz still being here is not great next year. Could it happen? I'm not saying it can't happen, but I just don't think it will happen. Just because everything out there screaming in the universe that this guy will be moved, he will be traded, and they will move on from him. But nonetheless, I do think it's fair to say that the Eagles were smart to wait until this point because now it won't be as big as a cap hit against their cap. They know he has value, and whether it's a team like the Cardinals, whether it's a team like the Buffalo Bills, a team like the Indianapolis Colts, whatever the team is, I would expect Zach Ertz to be moved for a 4th round pick or a player. For example, in the case of Jordan Hicks, who won't cost you that much against the cap to take him onto your roster. Now, in terms of Julio Jones, barring something completely unforeseen, I genuinely believe that Julio Jones will not be a Philadelphia Eagle next year. For 2 reasons. One, because Julio Jones says he wants to go to a winner. And I feel like the Falcons are not going to trade him to a bad situation or a situation that he does not want to be in. They seem to actually care about the guy. Or they would have just traded him to Siberia. Or at least in the NFL's version of it, the Bengals. I don't think they're going to do that. So I just don't think the Eagles are in play because I don't think they're a winning team. And number 2, $15 million is a lot of money. And the Eagles, if we do the math, based on what we know, don't have the money right now to absorb that cap hit. Now, again, as of this moment, that's what we know. I am not telling you that it can't happen. I'm just saying it's unlikely. I told you guys last week, I still believe that the teams that are going to be in on Julio Jones are teams like the Seahawks and the 49ers, teams like the Colts, teams like the Patriots, and any other team as a first-round pick they're willing to throw away in a trade because they believe they are a Julio Jones away from winning a championship. And that's what it really comes down to. Julio Jones is going to go to a team that thinks they are that close to winning a championship. And I just don't think the Eagles are one of those teams. All right, Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We're going to dive deeper into the 76ers next, the Joel Embiid situation, Ben Simmons, and more with Paul Hudrick, our Sixers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. And then we'll get to your thoughts and comments at 609-403-0973. And all of you watching live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you joining the conversation. We'll get to your comments next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
It's Sixers playoff basketball tomorrow night, right here on 97.3 ESPN, with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McInnes, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
In and out, no tap by 7-2.
It's Sixers Wizards, Game 5, tomorrow night. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia 76ers playoff basketball, and it's only on South Jersey's official Sixers station, 97.3 ESPN.
When you support your local small businesses, it helps keep your neighbors employed, helps kids save for college, and strengthens your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts local businesses in the spotlight.
First Bank of Sea Isle City, Kingman County's community bank.
Dr. Lyle M. Back for everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery. Go to ilovelylback.com.
Egg Harbor Independent Branch Leader at Charles Schwab in the Consumer Square Shopping Plaza.
Filling Marble and Tile Outlet, Philadelphia Avenue and Route 30 in Egg Harbor City. Visit fillingmarble.com.
Intuitive Women's Health in Summers Point, accepting new patients. Schedule an appointment today online at intuitivewomenshealth.net.
East Coast Roofing, Siding and Windows services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media South Jersey.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night Tuesday edition here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Sports Bash with Mike Gill, Game Night with Josh Hennig, and more. Just follow 97.3 ESPN. We'll get to your thoughts and comments at 609-403-0973. Just a bit. Also, all of you watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. But joining us, as mentioned on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. He is our Sixers insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. Also, the host of the Coming In for a Landing podcast, which a new edition just dropped today. He is the one and only Paul Hudrick here on 97.3 ESPN. Paul, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. And you know what? The reason why I'm doing good is because unlike the hysteria by some people on social media and the misinterpretations of information by some people who work in our industry, the media, I actually feel okay about the Joel Embiid news, because to me, doubtful means that if push came to shove and it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals, he's probably playing. Oh, and by the way, we've already seen a picture of him in a knee sleeve. And as someone who has ripped up both my knees, I can tell you that having a knee sleeve is very different than a knee brace.
Right. And it's just, I've been surprised too. I just sent out a tweet and it's like, there is a chance that he could play tomorrow. How is that not a positive? When of course, when you see Joel Embiid go down, you see him go to the locker room, you hear that he's not going to play the rest of the game, you can't help but your mind go to the worst possible place, and that is he's done for the rest of the postseason. That's of course where your brain, like, how could it not? With the history and everything he's gone through, how could you not kind of go there first? So the fact that he was able to play through the injury, like he suffered the injury with 4.5 minutes left in the first quarter, then played for 4 minutes, then walked to the locker room under his own power. And now we're hearing, he had an MRI today and they're listing the injury officially as knee soreness. And there is a chance, yes, he's listed as doubtful, but that means there is a chance he could play tomorrow. So long-term, that seems like a positive, and quite frankly, they should be able to beat this Washington Wizards team at home without Joel Embiid. Now, if they have him, that makes it a hell of a lot easier, but they should be able to even do it without him. To me, Josh, if you saw this news and you took it as negative, I can't help you, like, flat out. That's just where we are.
Well, the whole world wants to blame Ben Simmons' missed free throws on the loss last night, which if anybody watched the game from beginning to end knows that Ben Simmons missing free throws was not the reason why they lost. Okay. But nonetheless, here we are. The Sixers did lose yesterday. And to me, I think a big issue, you mentioned they're coming home tomorrow, Paul. Seth Curry hit no threes yesterday. I feel pretty comfortable saying that Seth Curry will not replicate that performance again in front of the home crowd, because we know that this home crowd changes this team astronomically in the Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons era. During the regular season, they have an 81% winning percentage at home, over 63% at home in the postseason. So to me, the big issue isn't Joel Embiid, whether you play or not. The fact is you're going home, and you know what? It's the NBA. Are you really surprised that a former league MVP and a guy who could have been the scoring champion won a game on the home court? I'm really not.
Right. It's you look at Monday's game was just a perfect storm of bad things. Embiid gets hurt in the first quarter, doesn't come back. Ben Simmons gets in foul trouble. Tobias Harris has by far his worst game of the series. As you already pointed out, Seth Curry hits no threes. They don't shoot as a team. They don't shoot the three ball particularly well. They only shoot 41% from the field as a team. It was just a perfect storm of bad things. And so even if Joel Embiid is unable to play, as you already mentioned, they are historically excellent at home. They've been an excellent home team all throughout this season. In the playoffs, it's an unbelievable advantage. It's 100% capacity for the first time as well. That's a factor. And if they don't have Joel Embiid, at least they know going in they will not have him. They can make adjustments. They can do different things. They can maybe perhaps, use Ben Simmons at the 5 a little more. I thought that was another thing, Josh, is I thought that if he wasn't in foul trouble, I really thought they would have used Ben Simmons more at the 5. The issue is he picks up that 4th foul, and you can't really use him in this situation as a screener and a roller because it's far too easy to pick up a cheap offensive foul, and then that would have hindered him even more. So, and I think you've seen in this series, Dwight Howard has struggled. There's no other way to put it. He has not been good in this series, and Mike Scott is Mike Scott. He's not had a good season, and he really did not impact the game at all yesterday. So to be able to go to Ben Simmons against a smaller team, mind you, too, the Wizards are a small team. We've seen that throughout. Now Bertans is out for the rest of the series, and that's one more taller player that's not going to be able to play for them. So they are going to be a very small team. So if there were ever an opportunity to use maybe like a 4-guard lineup or a 3-guard lineup with Tobias and Ben Simmons at the 5, I think this is a great opportunity to do that. And I think it's a lineup that helped them in game 4, make that comeback in the 4th quarter. And it's a lineup that I think Doc Rivers can use in game 5 if Joel Embiid doesn't play. So I just think you almost have to throw game 4 away. A lot of weird things happened. It was a weird night. And so I think the Sixers will. I think they'll flush game 4, what happened, and they'll go into game 5 with a different mindset with that home crowd at their back.
Paul Hudrick, our Sixers Insider over at 97.3 ESPN.com, joining us here on the Boardwalk Hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. The latest edition of Coming In for a Landing podcast is now live on all your podcasting platforms. Paul, I want to ask you the question that's been asked by a lot of people today. I'm just going to leave it completely open-ended. Doc Rivers' answer to the Ben Simmons question, how do you interpret it from last night's postgame?
Expected. It's 100% what I expected him to do. You can agree or disagree with what Doc Rivers is saying. Here's the thing, John. I'm not even sure that Doc Rivers is being 100% honest, and I'm okay with that. This is a game, right? This is all a game. This media coach reporter thing, it's all a game. And Doc Rivers has been in it a very long time, and he knows how to play it. What good does it do him to come to the media and start saying bad things about Ben Simmons and start saying, yeah, Ben Simmons needs to hit these free throws. This is really bad. I sort of understand Doc Rivers' logic when he says, listen, a point per possession. In the postseason, that's not bad. You look at, with all due respect to Tobias Harris yesterday, who did not have a good game. He was not a point per possession player yesterday. So, in crunch time in the playoffs, being a point per possession, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. So I think he raises a fair argument there. But to go beyond that, Ben Simmons knows he needs to be better from the free throw line. Flat out. He knows it. He said it himself. He knows he needs to get there and he needs to hit them. So what good does it do, Doc Rivers, to come at a guy who already is not feeling great about himself after the game to then pile on to us in the media and make it even worse? Like I just, from a mental standpoint, from a logic standpoint, and listen, and I no scrutiny to my colleagues in the media. Questions need to be asked. I get it. None of the questions to me were out of line or unfair, and I just don't think that Doc Rivers' answers should be surprising. He has stuck up for Ben Simmons all season long, and to add to that, Josh, just the last thing I'll say on it is, we know Ben Simmons is working on it. He's trying. He works on his free throws. It's not a matter of effort or not practicing or not. It's just a matter of mentally, he's off right now. He's not in a rhythm, and he's just off. So I don't think there is something Doc Rivers can say to us that's magically going to snap Ben Simmons out of it. It's just going to happen. And it's not, Doc Rivers berating him isn't going to make it happen. If anything, him nurturing it and trying to give Ben confidence is what's going to turn it around.
How much also do you feel like from Doc's perspective is he's trying to answer the question without also, for lack of a better term, sounding ridiculous? Like, he understands that, like you said, it's a game back and forth. The media asks a question, the coach has to give an answer. How much of also is Doc saying, listen, I have to give a answer, so I may not give you the answer you want, but I'm still giving you. It's like, the people talk about how, you can go to the media and do the Marshawn Lynch, I'm as here so I don't get fined, right? Well, Doc's at least giving you something to work with. As you said, it's not predictable. So how much of it is that, as well as Doc's saying, I have to give you something, so I just want to give you what you want to hear?
Yeah, and I don't say what you want about the responses. I think you would struggle to find an outlet that didn't write a story about Ben Simmons and that didn't use that Doc Rivers quote. So kind of the desired effect of wanting something that's quote worthy, that was attained by the people that asked the questions. He gave answers that were worth putting in stories and worth sharing on social media. So from that effect, from that way of looking at it, he supplied the reporters with exactly what we wanted. So and at the same time, I think it was twofold. I think he gave us an answer that he knew we would all use and that would get circulated. And it was an answer that when his all-star guards saw it, he would, again, fully know that his coach has his back. So I think Doc, in that sense, kind of used us, and I think he knows how to use us. He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. He's been doing this a long time. So he knows that quote's going to get around. He knows that it's going to make its way. And not only does Ben Simmons sees that, but players around the league see that. And you better believe that if a free agent is thinking about where they might want to go and they see, wow, Doc Rivers really has Ben Simmons back, and that's cool that he appreciates what Ben Simmons brings to the table, that's going to, maybe sway a guy in a future thing. So, like, Doc Rivers 100% knows what he's doing. He's playing the game. He knows exactly what he's doing. And like I said, I think the biggest thing he wanted to convey is that he has Ben Simmons back. He appreciates what Ben Simmons does, even though Ben Simmons has his flaws. He's choosing to look more at the positive. And if we're looking at it just from a pure positive negative standpoint, Josh, no one could deny Ben Simmons is a net positive for this basketball team. And I think that's the overarching point that Doc Rivers is trying to make.
Yeah, he literally was a +4.
There you go.
Last night. So literally and figuratively, he's a positive on the court. Paul Hudrick joining us here, our Sixers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. In your observations, I'm so glad you wrote this one part. Can we talk about Tyrese Maxey? I mean, we talk so much negativity. Oh, Ben Simmons, Embiid, blah, blah, blah. How about the guy is a rookie? He's your number 2 scorer in the game last night, and he brought a level of energy that this team so desperately needed off the bench. Between him and Thibault hitting 2 threes himself, by the way, they really gave you a legitimate pick-me-up when they were in the game.
Yeah, Furkan Korkmaz too. I mean, you got to give him credit. It's been kind of a weird series for him. He hasn't really gotten consistent time at all. Doc put him in game 1 when they really needed someone to hit some shots, and he missed all 3 he took. And then Doc's kind of gone away from him since then, playing him really sparingly. But he gave him a little boost in the second half, along with Tyrese Maxey. I thought both of those guys had a little energy and gave them a little something. But yeah, with Maxey, we're at a point now, and like when to get back to the point about like Ben Simmons playing the 5, part of the reason I want to see that is because Maxey has been arguably one of their top 7 or 8 best players. So I want to see him out there. It's regardless of lineup, figure out a way to get him out there. And one of the ways you can do that is by playing Ben Simmons at the 5 and going small. And I don't, especially in this series, Josh, when you look at what the Wizards are good, they're probably going to have to start either Raul Neto or Ish Smith tomorrow, along with Beal and Westbrook. I mean, they're going to have, the only guys in their starting line, they're going to have Achimura at 6'8", and they're going to have probably Gafford again, I would assume, at around 6'10". And then everybody else is 6'3" or smaller. So when you look at the lineup from that perspective, you can get away with playing Ben at the 5 and giving Maxey more time. And that's 100%. If I'm Doc Rivers, that's the way I'd be looking at it. And George Hill, too. George Hill's been a plus through 4 games so far. I think he had 14 points last night. So, I mean, those two guys, I think, they're impacting the game and impacting winning more than Dwight Howard or Mike Scott are right now. And maybe that doesn't happen in the next series. But in this series, that is the case. And that's why, for me, Tyrese Maxey, I'm finding a way to get him on the floor because he has been that good and he's been that consistently good. And really, he's carried it over from the way he closed the regular season. And he is just showing this moment is not too big for him. He has not flinched at all.
So with that being said, let's look ahead to Game 5 at home, 20,000 people in the building. What do you expect Doc Rivers to do in Game 5 that is going to be an adjustment? Because let's live in a world where Joel Embiid is doubtful and he doesn't play. What does that mean for the Sixers in Game 5?
So if it were me, and I'm not Doc Rivers, and Doc Rivers kind of goes by gut feel and just does what he feels is right, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. For me, in the starting lineup, if Joel Embiid does not play, I start Tyrese Maxey. I really would. I would put Ben Simmons at the 5, and I would start Tyrese Maxey. As you mentioned, you got 20,000 fans. They're going to be going nuts. I don't know if it comes across on TV, Josh, but every time that Tyrese Maxey checks into a game, the crowd loses their minds. They love him. So you announce him as part of the starters.
Hold on,
they're going to freak out.
Do you announce him last?
Maybe you do, and it brings and you just you give the crowd that extra boost, and then on top of that, the energy he brings. You have a chance if you're the Sixers at home. You can just take the Wizards' heart. You can do that, and I think that lineup gives you the best chance to do it. I think Ben Simmons will be okay against Gafford. I think he can stand up pretty well against the lob threat. You're going to lose something in the rim protection department, but quite frankly, Dwight Howard and Mike Scott haven't provided that either. So I'd rather go with the small lineup, try to run the Wizards, try to almost beat the Wizards with their own game in a sense, but you're a better defensive team. So I think you have a better shot at running them out of the building than they do you. So I think in this situation, I'm not saying that this should be the case going forward or whatever, and I don't know what the second round's going to hold because every series is different. Really, every game is different. But for me, I start Tyrese Maxey. I just think that's the lineup that gives you the better chance to win. If not Maxey, I would start George Hill. If you're looking for a guy with maybe a little bit more experience, gives you a little bit more outside shooting. But I would not start Dwight Howard or Mike Scott. I think that's a mistake. Now, I think he's going to start Mike Scott. Just a hunch, just what I think. But if it were me, I would start Tyrese Maxey.
Paul, one more before I let you go. Always appreciate you jumping on here at GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. At Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Check out his latest article at 97.3 ESPN.com after last night's game. Paul, we all expect it's going to be Nets and Bucks. I mean, they're not even playing Kemba Walker tonight for the Celtics. It's almost a fait accompli that it's going to be Nets Bucks. How do you feel about that series after what we know now? Because in my opinion, I think the Celtics 1 win showed a recipe to the Bucks of how to slow down the Nets, which is their 3 stars scored 96 points combined and they lost. And most teams, if you tell me your best 3 players get 96 points, you're probably winning. And I think that gave you a little perspective of there's a way to beat this Nets team. And I think the Bucks may be best equipped to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they have a chance. They really do have a shot. I think the Nets are scary. Don't get me wrong. That talent level, and when you see those 3 guys are all clicking, they're really, really going to be hard to beat. But what the Bucks have is they have 3 above-average defenders in their starting lineup. Giannis offers a really unique matchup for Kevin Durant, and I would assume that he might be guarding Kevin Durant on the other end. I don't know. Maybe it's Blake Griffin. I don't know. And then you have Drew Holiday can guard Kyrie, and Middleton can guard Harden at a pretty high level. So they offer a really intriguing matchup. I would lean towards the Nets still, just because of that talent. but the Bucks have a shot. And I think the Bucks are a better team than they were last year. I think they've already proven that by the way they took care of the Heat. And they're a little angry. And I think that bodes well. When you're a team that has that chip on your shoulder, and we've seen this throughout, and it's not just, sure, it's NBA history. We saw it with Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, where you lose playoff matchups and it makes you better and it makes you come out the next year hungrier and wanting it more. We see it in all sports. Think about even the Phillies back in the day, they lose in 2007 in the first round, they lose to the Rockies. Then they come back, angrier the next year, they win the whole thing. So I think there is a precedent for that in sports where teams come close and they lose and it fuels them. And I think the Bucks have that going for them too. So I think it's going to be a knockout, drag-out series. I think it's going to be tough. And I think it's going to be ugly. And I think the Nets are the Nets up for that. Can they do that? Can they grind it out like that? Clearly they have the offensive firepower to compete with anyone, but will they be able to kind of win those uglier games? And that's what I think the series is going to be awesome. I think I could easily see it going 7 games. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
If you ask me right now, Paul, I'm going with the Bucks for this one reason. Giannis in his post-game press conference after being the Heat, he literally came this close saying, I don't bleep and care about any of your questions. He's like, the past is the past. We're moving. He's at a point right now where I think mentally he's just on a different level. And if anybody should be scared of that, because this dude's 26 years old, he's technically just entering the prime of his career, and he's won 2 MVPs. If I'm the Nets, I should be scared because you know what? Durant's got a ring. Kyrie's got a ring. Harden's got an MVP. Giannis, he's a little too hungry. If I was the Nets, I'd be looking at that guy's kind of psychopath right now.
Drew Holiday is also pretty darn hungry. Here's a guy that's kind of always been really under the radar, pretty underrated player. Spent some tough years in New Orleans. Now he's got a real chance of winning something. You better believe he's going to bring it all too. I mean, and I agree with you on Giannis, man. His mindset is different. I thought the line that we didn't want to play with our food, he said after game 4. I mean, this guy, he's got a little bit of that edge to him right now. And I think that it's been needed from him. And I don't think he's always had it. And I think, it's an excellent point that he is hungrier than he's ever been. And that's going to mean trouble for the Nets. They're going to have their hands full with him.
He's Paul Hudrick. The latest edition of Coming In for a Landing podcast dropped today. Him and Kevin McCormick unpacking game 4. And of course, look ahead to game 5 at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. And as all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Paul, appreciate you jumping on today and the conversation. Great stuff.
Thanks, Josh. Anytime, man.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We're going to get to your thoughts and comments. I got texts at 609-403-0973. I got messages from Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN. We're going to get to all of your thoughts coming up next as we wrap up the hour right here on Game Night with yours truly, Josh Hennig, on 97.3 ESPN FM. And don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It is free. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on 97.3 ESPN.
Coming up Wednesday, the Lakers look to take back home court advantage in Game 5 with the Suns. We'll tell you why this series could mean so much for LeBron James' legacy. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, Wednesday morning on ESPN Radio.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
When you support your local small businesses, it helps keep your neighbors employed, helps kids save for college, and strengthens your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts local businesses in the spotlight.
Ambient Comfort Heating and Cooling Professionals. AmbientComfortNJ.com.
Filling Marble and Tile Outlet, Philadelphia Avenue and Route 30 in Egg Harbor City. FillingMarble.com.
Dennisville Fence, serving you since 1952. Be the envy of your neighborhood.
Comfort Now by Bob McAllister. Improve the comfort in your home. Call 609-400-1005 and ask about discounts and rebate incentives. Visit iwantcomfortnow.com.
East Coast Roofing, Siding and Windows. Services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media South Jersey.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here, final segment of the show, 973 ESPN. We'll get to your text coming up here at 609-403-0973. We also have comments of people watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Don't forget, yours truly, Josh Hennig, being brought to you here on Game Night by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. And with the basketball season, the postseason fully underway, what's cool with FanDuel Sportsbook, you combine props like player props, game props, over-unders, money lines, spreads, and make a same game parlay bet. You can only find it on FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook or use FanDuel every day, you check out the NBA same game parlays daily. If you haven't tried FanDuel Sportsbook yet, new users get a first bet risk-free up to $1,000 to place a bet, and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back in site credit if you don't win. If you're an existing user of FanDuel Sportsbook, make sure you check out. They're always on promotions and exclusive same-game parlay payouts. So if you miss one leg on your same-game parlay, you can get a refund back up to $10 each and every day. So download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, sign with my promo code Hennig to get your first bet risk-free and to get same-game parlays only with FanDuel Sportsbook. That's promo code Hennig when you sign up. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey or PA. First online real money wager only for risk-free bet. Refund issues, non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we got a lot of you guys to get to. As I mentioned, 609-403-0973 is the text board. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Rodney, watching on YouTube, chimed in about our conversation with Paul Hudrick there. Says, I could agree with more Paul on the coaches figuring out a way to have Maxey and Simmons out there. As Mike Gill alluded to earlier, the only downside is not having Simmons on the perimeter. And at this point, having Simmons on the perimeter is not as important because I think we've seen that Bradley Beal can go out there and score a ton of points, and Russell Westbrook can have his triple doubles, and the Wizards have lost games. So letting Russ cook and letting Bradley Beal score is not a recipe for a loss. It's just part of the paradigm of playing a team like the Wizards. I told you guys on Saturday, the Celtics proved that you can let two superstars go nuts and you can still win a game. All right. Now, the Nets are an anomaly because they have three superstars and they have a washed up guy in Blake Griffin. They didn't play DeAndre Jordan at all that night. So there might be something to be said for that. But at the end of the day, I just don't think we can overlook the fact that you can let those guys do their thing. I think the problem with the Sixers last night was also them, the rebounding category. They were getting so many offensive rebounds and so many easy drop-in dunks for the Wizards. You got to do something to put them off. And Ben Simmons ain't going to go out there and block a bunch of shots, but he's at least going to give guys like Gafford and Lopez and Hui Hachimura trouble. So that's how I look at it. Let's get over to the text board at 609-403-0973. Dan from EHC says Sixers want to clinch the series tomorrow at home with a full capacity crowd. Joel Embiid has to play a little. I think we will see, Joe. Don't you, Josh? I don't know, Dan EHT. I think that, to me, I've always interpreted doubtful as he's not going to play unless it's extremely important for him to play. And I think the Sixers can win the game without him. Now, I don't think this is a Willis Reed moment. This is not like he was horribly injured. As I said, I have ripped up both my knees. If you're wearing a knee sleeve, the majority of the time, that means the knee is not that serious. So you take the announcement that he's doubtful. You take the announcement that knee is sore. You take the Instagram picture of him wearing the knee sleeves. I think it's fair to say that Embiid's going to be okay. And if he doesn't play tomorrow, I'm not worried about it long term. And it might be a blessing in disguise. You may not need him to play tomorrow. Give him a little extra rest. Let him rest up for the next round. Let him sit back and kick back for whoever he has to play the next round, because you know what? Whether it's the Knicks or the Hawks, they're going to be more of a challenge than the Wizards are. 609-403-0970. We talked about the news with Julio Jones earlier today. Obviously, the Falcons, I should say, are going to trade him. One of the teams I listed was the Seahawks as a team he could be traded to. All right. Texter chimed in and says, I just don't see how Julio Jones would be a fit in Seattle. They have a tremendous talent wide receiver already and traditionally been a run-first offense. I would bet San Francisco, Green Bay, or Indy. I agree. I'm not saying Seattle's a front runner, and I haven't seen anybody report that either. I was just saying that they are an option because, again, they have the new offensive coordinator, Shane Walden. He comes from the Sean McVay tree. He's also worked in a lot of offenses that are a little bit more pass concepts and a little bit more of utilizing the play action to go deep, things that Russell Wilson does well. I just wouldn't be surprised if they went on and get a Julio Jones. I think San Francisco has to be in the conversation because Kyle Shanahan used to coach him. And the problem with Green Bay is being this stubborn with Aaron Rodgers. Do we really think they're going to get Julio Jones? Indy's fascinating because Indy has the draft capital. They do have the ability to make a deal. All right. And I think that him across from Michael Pittman would be an incredible move. And then you could kick a guy like T.Y. Hilton and maybe into the slot. That'd be a very dangerous offense. So thanks everybody for commenting, watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm Josh Hennig at Josh Hennig on Twitter. We can harass me over there. Of course, don't forget Sports Back to Mike Yell tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
The summer season is beginning to heat up, and that means more time in the sun and, unfortunately, an increased risk of skin cancer. It's one of the most common cancers in the United States, with more than 5 million cases diagnosed each year. But here's the good news. Skin cancer is also one of the most preventable forms of cancer. Of course, we know we should slather on the sunscreen when we go to the beach, but we need to protect our skin all the time. Think of it this way. Our skin remembers every minute we spend in the sun, whether we're taking a walk or getting in and out of the car. And ultraviolet rays penetrate through glass, so the windshield is not a sunblock. One of the simplest ways to reduce our risk of skin cancer is to wear sunscreen with a minimum SPF of 30 every day. And if you're outdoors more than 2 hours, be sure to reapply it. Remember the simple rule, redo in 2. I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
If you were lied to when buying a timeshare and want out, you need my help. Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started the timeshare cancellation industry by exposing the